All right, so get ready because today we're going on a deep dive that's going to take us out of this world.
Out of this world, huh? Sounds exciting.
Literally, out of this world.
Oh, literally. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, we're exploring a story about cosmonauts. And, well, they encounter something really unexpected while they're orbiting Earth.
Something tells me this isn't your typical spacewalk story.
You got that right. We're looking at an article called Mind-Blowing Story of Russian Cosmonauts Who Saw Angels in Space.
Okay, angels in space. I gotta hear
It
you.
was published on a site called TechBlog
Techlog. Okay.
back in 2012.
Right,
But this isn't something new that just came out.
right.
This supposedly happened way back in 1984
Wow, 1984. Okay.
on board the Soviet space station Salyut 7.
Salyut 7. Ah, yes, a very important part of the Soviet space program,
Think so?
second-generation space station.
Yeah,
A lot of record-breaking missions happened on that station,
for sure.
but it also had some challenges.
Oh, yeah.
They had some technical problems, even a couple of fighters on board.
I read about that the cosmonauts had to do some pretty intense repairs in orbit.
Oh,
Talk
yeah.
about pressure.
For sure.
But anyway, this story isn't about the technical issue.
Okay.
It's about something way stranger.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
3 cosmonauts. They've been on this mission for over 5 months.
Wow, 5 months. That's a long time.
Commander Oleg Gatkov, Vladimir Solovyov, and Leonid Kizim.
Oh, okay.
And suddenly the station is just bathed in this intense orange light.
Wait, hold on. Bathed in light. Where's the light coming from?
That's the crazy part. They said it was coming from outside the station.
From outside.
Yeah, like passing through a solid wall of the station.
What? That's bizarre.
I know, right? So naturally, their first thought was fire.
Oh, yeah, especially given Salyut 7's history.
Exactly. With those fires they had before, it would be terrifying.
A fire in space, that's like a worst-case scenario.
Absolutely. But what they saw next was even more unbelievable.
Okay, more unbelievable than a fire in space. All right, I'm on the edge of my seat.
They reported seeing 7 figures, angelic figures, outside the station.
Angelic figures, you said. Now you've got my full attention. What exactly did they see?
Well, they described these figures as being humanoid, with faces and bodies, kind of like ours, you know.
Okay, humanoid.
But they had wings and halos.
Whoa, hold on.
Can you imagine looking at your spacecraft window and seeing that?
I can only imagine. And they were just floating out in space like that.
Well, not exactly floating.
Oh.
They described them as pacing the station, like keeping pace with them as they orbited Earth.
Keeping pace. So were they moving slowly then, like at the speed of the station?
That's what's so strange. They said it was like a deliberate, almost synchronized movement, like they were intentionally moving along with the station.
That is strange.
And it wasn't just a quick glimpse either.
Oh.
This sighting lasted a full 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Wow. That's not just a glance. That's a sustained observation.
Right. And we're talking about 3 seasoned cosmonauts, trained observers.
Yeah, these weren't rookies on their first space flight.
Definitely not.
This was the elite of the Soviet space program,
Absolutely.
selected for their mental and physical resilience.
Right.
So to have 3 experienced cosmonauts report seeing something like that,
Yeah.
well, it definitely makes you wonder what they really saw.
It makes you wonder.
What could possibly explain that?
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher.
For sure.
But anyway, we'll get into more of that in just a bit. We've got to take a quick break. And we're back. So we were just talking about these cosmonauts, right?
Yeah, these highly trained cosmonauts who reported seeing, well, angels in space?
And it's not every day you hear about something like that, right?
No, not exactly an everyday occurrence.
But the story gets even more interesting.
More interesting, how so?
So about 10 days after this first encounter, a new crew arrived at the Salyut 7 station.
A new crew.
They arrived aboard the Soyuz T-12 spacecraft.
The Soyuz, the workhorse of the Soviet and now Russian space program.
For sure.
It's been taking crews to and from space for decades now.
I know, it's amazing. But what do you think the purpose of this new crew was?
I'm guessing it was a routine rotation.
Not quite. This new crew had a specific mission.
Oh.
This crew included Svetlana Pitasatskaya, Igor Volk, and Vladimir Zlanibekov.
Okay, and what was their mission?
Well, Svetlana Savitskaya, she was the second woman ever to go to space.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know, right? And her mission included a spacewalk.
A spacewalk? What was she doing out there?
She was conducting experiments, welding, and cutting metal in the vacuum of space.
Welding and cutting metal in space, that's pretty impressive for 1984.
Yeah, the Soviets were really pushing the boundaries back then.
They were really at the forefront of space exploration.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, with all their focus on science and technology,
Right.
how they must have reacted to this report of angels.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a fascinating question.
Well, here's where it gets even more intriguing. Shortly after the Soyuz docked with Salyut 7.
Don't tell me. The orange light returned.
You got it.
Whoa, no way!
And this time, all 6 cosmonauts witnessed those same angelic figures outside the station.
Wait, so both crews, 10 days apart, they saw the same thing?
Yep.
That's quite a coincidence.
It is.
Did the second crew describe them the same way as the first?
They did, for the most part, but there was one key difference this time.
Oh. What's that?
The figures were described as being the size of an airliner.
The size of an airliner. Wow!
That really changes the scale of this whole encounter.
Imagine seeing something that massive out there in the blackness of space.
It must have been awe-inspiring, maybe even terrifying.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Did they try to communicate with these beings?
Yeah, any interaction at all.
That's the thing. The article doesn't mention any attempts at communication.
I see.
But here's the catch. This whole incident was classified as top secret by the Soviet Union.
Ah, the Soviet Union and their secrets.
Right. The cosmonauts weren't allowed to discuss it publicly.
Classic Cold War secrecy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During the Cold War, their space program was shrouded in mystery.
Competing with the U.S., they guarded their successes and their failures very closely.
Absolutely.
So it makes you wonder, is it possible that this whole story was fabricated by the Soviets?
Right. Was it some kind of Cold War propaganda?
That's a great question. We know that the Soviets were masters of disinformation.
For sure.
But it's also important to remember that this wasn't just a story released to the public.
Right.
This was a report from their own cosmonauts.
People they trusted.
Exactly. Individuals they highly valued and relied upon.
So it's hard to imagine they would risk their cosmonauts' credibility with a made-up story.
Right. So if it wasn't propaganda, then what was it?
Yeah, what could explain it?
Could there be some scientific explanation for what they saw?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Well, some people have suggested that they might have encountered some atmospheric phenomenon.
Oh, like something we don't fully understand yet.
Exactly. Space is full of surprises.
That's true.
And there's always the possibility that they witnessed something genuinely unique.
And unexplained.
Precisely.
And then there's the question of human perception, especially in the extreme conditions of space travel.
Right, the psychological aspect.
Prolonged isolation, sensory deprivation, changes in brain chemistry, all of these factors could play a role.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot about the effects of long-duration spaceflight on the human mind and body.
It's pretty amazing what the human body can endure.
It is. But sleep deprivation, stress, even the subtle changes in gravity, these things can have a profound impact on our perception.
So are we saying that what they saw could have been hallucinations?
It's definitely a possibility, but then how do you explain multiple crews, 10 days apart, all seeing the same thing?
That's a good point. You'd think there would be some variation in their descriptions, right?
Exactly, or for some of them to see something different.
That's true. And here's another thing that makes me question the hallucination theory.
What's that?
Well, remember, the original crew went on to set a record. They stayed on Salyut 7 for a total of 237 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
I know. If they were experiencing some kind of mental breakdown, wouldn't you expect it to impact their ability to function, to continue their mission?
You would think so, logically speaking.
Right.
Their ability to carry on with their duties, to even achieve a record-breaking stay in space.
Exactly.
It suggests that whatever they experienced, it didn't seem to have a lasting negative effect on their mental state.
So where does that leave us? What are we to make of this whole story?
It feels like we're at a crossroads here.
I agree.
On one hand, we have these rational scientific explanations.
Like fatigue or some unknown atmospheric phenomenon?
Exactly. But on the other hand, we have the shared experience of multiple crews, the consistency of their descriptions, and the lack of any apparent negative effects on their mission.
It really makes you wonder.
It certainly does. And I think that's the beauty of exploring these kinds of stories. They challenge our preconceived notions.
They make us think outside the box.
Exactly. They push us to consider possibilities outside our everyday experience.
And they remind us that we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. There's still so much about the universe.
And about ourselves.
That we don't fully understand.
And it's interesting to think about the context of this story.
Oh, how so?
Well, we're talking about the Soviet Union in the 1980s.
Right.
A time and place where the official ideology was deeply rooted in materialism and atheism.
That's true.
So it makes you wonder how this story was received within the Soviet space program.
You're right. Were there whispers, debates behind closed doors?
Exactly. Think about these highly trained cosmonauts,
Products of a system that emphasized scientific rationality.
grappling with an experience that seems to defy easy explanation.
It really makes you wonder how this story might have impacted their personal beliefs, their understanding of the world.
It's fascinating to think about.
It is.
And what about the long-term implications?
Like what?
Did this event influence future Soviet space missions?
Interesting question.
Were there changes in protocols, psychological evaluations?
Or even, I don't know, spiritual guidance for cosmonauts.
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the details about the Soviet reaction are scarce.
Yeah, a lot of information about their space program is still classified,
Even today.
but it's definitely an intriguing area for further exploration.
I agree.
Imagine digging through those declassified archives, uncovering reports, memos, maybe even personal diaries from the people involved.
It would be amazing.
What a treasure trove of information that would be.
It makes you wonder what other stories are still hidden away, waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. It's a tantalizing thought.
And it brings us back to this fundamental question. What really happened up there on Salyut 7?
Well, if we're looking for a definitive answer,
Yeah.
I'm afraid we might be disappointed.
Oh.
The truth is, we may never know for sure what those cosmonauts saw that day,
I suppose that's true.
but I think the value lies not in finding one single explanation,
Okay.
but in the exploration itself and considering different perspectives and grappling with the unknown.
I agree. It's about the journey, not just the destination. This deep dive has been a journey into the intersection of science and spirituality.
I like that, the intersection of science and spirituality.
It's a reminder that even in the vast expanse of space, the human experience is still filled with mystery and wonder.
Well said, and maybe that's the most profound takeaway of all.
Perhaps it is. This story invites us to look beyond the familiar
To consider possibilities we haven't even thought of.
and to consider the possibility that there might be more to the universe than we currently understand,
It encourages us to keep asking questions, to stay curious.
and to embrace the mysteries that still lie ahead.
Well said, well said. It's a reminder that exploration isn't just about venturing out into space.
It's about expanding the boundaries of our own minds.
Exactly.
And on that note, we wrap up our deep dive into the story of the cosmonauts and the angels.
A fascinating story for sure.
Thank you for joining us on this thought-provoking journey.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep looking up, keep exploring, and who knows what you might discover out there.
That's the spirit. Never stop exploring.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Until then, keep those minds open.